This episode of Geni's Way is brought to you by Unique Marketer, where passionate marketing delivers powerful results. What do forecasting storms and remaking your life after a 40-year career have in common? Way more than you think. In this episode of Geni's Way, I talk with Emmy-winning meteorologist Greg Fishel, who spent decades predicting the unpredictable and now opens up about navigating uncertainty in business, identity, and purpose. We unpack reinvention, integrity, and the power of staying grounded when everything around you shifts. Now, let's get on to Greg Fishel. I want to welcome everyone back to Geni's Way, when exciting things happen every time, where we talk about mindset, marketing, money, and much more. I am so excited, and I cannot wait to introduce no other than Greg Fishel, award-winning broadcast meteorologist. Yay! Here comes Greg Fishel.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're legendary meteorologist.
Oh,
you're very legendary.
I've been called worse.
You've been called worse. So one of the first questions, let me ask you. So you've been projecting the weather and predicting it, but it wasn't really predicting because you have a official degree in meteorology, aren't you?
Right.
So what is more difficult, predicting North Carolina weather or running business in 2025?
I think I would say that predicting North Carolina weather is more difficult than just about anything I could try to do.
Oh, wow. Why is that?
Well, one of the things that's unique about North Carolina is that we're one of only 3 states in the U.S. that has a warm body of water adjacent to a mountain range. And that would be North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. And when you have a warm body of water like the Gulf Stream, not too far away from a major mountain range, it can make life very, very complicated. And so that's what makes it fun. It's challenging, but nobody that is in meteorology wants to live in San Diego because it's the same thing every day. You know, you want things that are vibrant and dynamic and changing, and we certainly have that here.
Looking back years ago, what sparked that interest in becoming meteorologist for you? Did you wake up one day when you were a teenager and said, oh, this is what I wanted to do?
Well, I think when you go back to maybe when I was 4 or 5 years old, I was petrified of thunderstorms. If there was a tornado watch, not a warning, but a watch up, my assumption was that there was going to be one tornado, it was going to be really bad, and it was headed straight for me. And so there was an awful lot of anxiety, self-imposed, because of that. I also love snow, and I've never gotten over that. I cannot get enough snow. And so I think the fact that it occupied so much of my emotions at such an early age sort of set the stage for me to become, very interested in it. And I happened to stumble upon a television show on public TV in 1969 or thereabouts. And it was produced at Penn State, where I ended up going to college. And that's when I really got hooked. And I pretty much knew at that point what I was going to do. Not the TV part, but the meteorology part. I knew that was what I wanted to do.
What was so exciting for you about the science of meteorology? What is it? Was it that one thing that you can pinpoint?
I think for me anyways, it was changes in the weather. Like I told somebody the other day that I'd love to spend a winter in Denver, Colorado, because it can be 70 and sunny one day and 2 below zero and snowing the next. And the those kind of things I find very exciting. I spent the night on the top of Mount Washington, New Hampshire in February one time, and the temperature was 5 below 0 and the wind was gusting to 90 miles an hour. Those are the kind of things that really get me going, you know. And so it's just always been a fascination with weather and especially weather extremes. I would say that's the thing that really gets me going.
You like the excitement of the extreme. Is that
Yeah.
adrenaline that
Yes.
kind of gets you going?
I'm a very sick puppy.
Well, that's an interesting term you're describing yourself with. On that note, folks, we'll be right back. This episode is brought to you by Unique Marketer. Now imagine your business leading, not following. Meet Unique Marketer. We don't shout or whisper in a way that brings everyone to listen. Unique Marketer changes the game with connection marketing. We turn our audiences into communities, eager for your story. Insightful tools guide us, not just an attitude of sales. Our approach: connect, resonate, transform. If you're interested in learning more, Unique Marketer gives Geni's Way listeners a free digital analysis and strategy goal. Use Listen Up with the link in show notes. Lead with Unique Marketer, where we help your business shine. So, Greg, we were talking about your love for meteorology, which is exciting, and I can see why you got so excited about it. So tell my listeners, how did you get to broadcast meteorology? How did you end up being the first in the United States doing that on TV?
Well, first of all, the first time I was ever recorded was for radio when I was a student at Penn State. And we had a volunteer weather service where the students would prepare and broadcast forecasts for local radio stations. That is when I was the absolute most nervous I have ever been in my life. The first time I was recorded over the phone, I felt like I took one deep breath, talked for 60 seconds without breathing, and then died when it was over. It was terrifying. And for some reason, adjusting to television was easier for me than radio. I think I think the big bugaboo for me was just knowing that I was being recorded, period, and that I had to get over the fear of that. Now, you mentioned the first certified broadcast meteorologist. I need to be honest about that. I was on the American Meteorological Society broadcast board, which is like a subcommittee, if you will, of the whole society. And I was asked to chair the committee to develop a certification exam, because prior to that, all you had to do was send in a tape of your broadcast and somebody would make a judgment as to whether or not you were good or not. And we felt like there needed to be a certification exam like other, fields have. And so I had a committee of about 10 people that helped me with that. And as a thank you for chairing that committee, they offered me the #1 spot. Any one of those 10 people could have just as easily been the first one. So obviously I was very flattered that they offered that to me, but I always want to be honest with people about the fact that it was not a one-man show. It was definitely a team effort, and I got a lot of help from a lot of really, really good people.
You brought up some interesting things that I would like to get into. How teamwork made your career better, and what would you advise people to be able to work with the team?
Well, you know what? It's funny you bring that up, or interesting, is that one of the people I worked with at WRL was Mike Mays. And when we both came into work in the afternoon, he would prepare his forecast independently, and I would prepare my forecast independently, and then we would get together and we would compare notes. And there were some times that he noticed something that I didn't, and there were some times that I noticed something that he didn't. And so we would come up with a consensus of the big points that both of us saw. And even though I was the chief, technically, I never wanted anybody in that office to feel like their opinion didn't matter. And I always felt like the reason you hire good people is so no matter who's on duty, when something big happens, they can handle it. And a great example of that was April 16th of 2011. There was a major tornado outbreak in North Carolina. I was up visiting my dad in Pennsylvania, and it was the last time I saw him coherent.
Oh, wow.
And I am grateful that I was able to do that. It was the first major weather event I ever missed on television, but the people that handled it did a great job. So, I just always felt like it was more important for us to present a forecast as a we and not an I, that it truly was a team effort.
That's great. So you feel like empowering and inspiring you're a leader that inspire other people. You don't act like my answer is the only right answer. So that's interesting perspective.
Yeah, I just, because I don't think that does anything to help anybody else's, I don't know, for lack of a better word, ego or self-esteem. I wanted everybody to feel like they were valued, and just like I like to feel like I'm valued. I mean, I think we're all human, and every once in a while we want a pat on the back and have somebody tell us we're doing a good job, and I think it's important to do that.
What advice would you give to people that are not able to lead the team the way you were just describing, like they feel like they're always right? What would be the advice for those people?
Oh, the advice to people, I'm sorry, about what now?
The people advise that don't see it from your perspective, like saying, oh, I'm the boss, I'm always right. How would you?
How would I deal with somebody like that? Yeah. Oh boy. That's a good question. I guess I would just, well, I will give you an example, and I don't know if this is exactly what you are talking about, but when I got to Raleigh, I went over to North Carolina State University and introduced myself to one of the professors in the meteorology department. And he was very friendly and welcoming, and he couldn't have been nicer. The next professor I met over there, when I was introduced to him, he mumbled these words, "Is he any good?" And I knew I had a challenge on my hand because there was a perception that TV weather people were not real scientists, that they just wanted to get their face on television, but they didn't really understand the science. And I wanted to prove to him that I was different. And so I started getting involved in projects with him and talking to him a lot. And over time, he gradually came to realize that, oh, this guy is actually into the science. He's not just there to promote himself. So I think you have to do it gently. Like you don't want to get into a fight, with this person, but you just want to, over time, make them realize that, that you deserve to be respected just like they do.
That's very interesting perspective. People will think like, oh, I'm going to prove them, and I'm going to fight this fight, I'm going to win. And you did kind of opposite. You kind of figured out, okay, how can I collaborate and prove him with your expertise and your knowledge instead of fighting him? That's great wisdom, Greg.
Well, I mean, maybe I just got lucky with that approach, but it was just one of those things where I feel like I want to be this guy's friend. I want to be this guy's colleague. And what can I do to make that happen? And if I got mad at him and avoided him, that's not going to accomplish that goal.
Yeah, that's so true. So, Greg, whether in business, when we talk about whether in business and running the business, there's nothing guaranteed. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Like one of the things since I started this subscription service on Patreon, the subscriber number shot up very quickly in the beginning, and then it started to level off and even come down a little bit. And of course, I took that very personally, like, what am I doing wrong? What is it that people don't like? And there are some times that it's not that somebody doesn't like it, it's just that they're not using it. And why are they paying money for something that they're not using? I come across subscriptions that I forgot that I had that I'm not using. And then I start to think about it. Why am I paying for that? I never make use of it. So there are some times when people legitimately are just trying to cut back on expenses. And they're, if you have a whole bunch of $3 and $5 a month charges, they add up, So I try to look at it, that way, but by the same token, I'm always looking for, for reasons that I can do things that maybe will get more people to subscribe. And I think sometimes maybe I go into the science a little bit too much. Some people like that, some people don't. And that's why I always do the forecast first, because if you're not interested in all the extra stuff, you don't have to sit through that, You can just get what you want and leave.
What would be advice for you to give to other people that they feel stuck, like you were saying, like no matter what they're doing, they don't feel like they're growing, whether it be subscription numbers or the sales or the profit in their business? How do you keep showing up? What do you need to do? What do you need to tell yourself? How do you show up if things getting rough?
I think, one of the things is that I guess I always ask myself the question, what can I do better? Or is there something that is there something I can change that would make my graphics more clear or more understandable? There's a couple of things that I show on a daily basis that, to be honest with you, if you're not used to looking at it every day like I am, I could see how it could be very confusing. And I've tried to add a couple of things to make it less confusing, but I think I could probably take that a few steps farther. And one of the things, and this is a pet peeve of mine for years, is that if you look at a 7-day forecast in the summertime, it could be that every day there's going to be a sun, a cloud, a raindrop, and a lightning bolt. And you're going to
that sounds cliche, Greg.
But you look at that picture and you start thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, I can't play golf, I can't play tennis, I can't walk the dog, it's going to be an awful week. And the one thing I tried to emphasize is that in June and July, we have over 14 hours of daylight every day. If it storms for 1 hour, that means you have 13 plus hours where it's dry and fine. And so I always tried to emphasize to people, if you have outdoor plans for tomorrow, don't cancel them. The worst case scenario is you've got to duck for cover for an hour, and then once the storm passes, you go on about your business and do whatever you want to do. But I think sometimes the media, either through graphics or whatever, make things look worse than they're going to be. And this is one thing I've always tried to be clear about, is don't give up on this, you know. Now, if it genuinely looks like it's going to rain all day long, then that's, you know, you got to be honest about that. But that doesn't happen that often in North Carolina during the summertime. It really doesn't.
Why is that people always tend to make things sound worse than it really is? Have you ever pondered that?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I see weather people on YouTube that actually do some really nice videos, but their headlines, what they do in order to get people to watch their video is ridiculous. It talks about, you know, it makes it sound like the world's going to end. And then when you actually click on the video and watch it, there's nothing like that, you know? And I'm just a great believer in being honest with people. It's like, if you can't promote yourself by your everyday performance and you have to stretch the truth to get people to watch, then I start to wonder, how good are you? You know? Now, they could make the argument that they've got more followers than I do because they do give the misleading headline, you know? A lot of people fall for that. I just feel better if I'm honest and save those kind of comments for the situations that really are serious and really are unique.
Mm-hmm. That brings an important question that you're referring to values. So you're very strong about integrity and the truth and the facts. Talk about values and how that affected your career and your decisions.
In terms of being truthful?
Yeah, and talk about facts, and your integrity extremely high when it comes to your personal and professional life. How did that affect what you did over the course of the last 35, 40 years?
Well, I kid about the fact that I was brought up with a PhD in guilt. That I never wanted to do something that I was going to feel, you know, really, really bad about. And I think there was also, and I'm being very honest here, when I first got into the business, I knew about all the jokes that people made about weather people, like it must be nice to have a job where you can be wrong all the time and still get paid, and you never get the forecast right, and all this sort of stuff. And so when I got into the business, I had a chip on my shoulder, and I wanted to prove to people that this was a real science and that there was skill to it and all of that. But over time, I realized that all I was doing was showing my insecurity by doing that. And so I just decided that I'm just going to be as honest as I can be. And if I have high confidence in the forecast, I'll state that. If I have low confidence, I'll state that too. Why should I pretend to be confident when I'm not? And now if somebody comes up to me and says, must be nice to have a job where you can be wrong all the time and still get paid, instead of getting defensive, I just look at them and say, hey, it's good work if you can get it. And I think that's just part of growing up and maturing and realizing that you can't take yourself too seriously.
Mm-hmm. How long it took you to get to that point to feel the way you feel about it now?
Oh, gosh. Now, this is one thing that a lot of people don't know. Mm-hmm. I was a huge introvert all the way until I was about age 25 or 30.
Really?
The first 8 years I was in television, I avoided the public. If I went into a public place, I would look at the ground and try to avoid eye contact with people. I didn't want any part of that. And then one day I thought to myself, you know, Greg, you're expending an awful lot of energy avoiding people. What would happen if you used that energy to embrace people? Mm. And so I walked into a grocery store one day and I decided I was going to look straight ahead. And if I made eye contact with somebody, I was going to say hi to them. And that day literally changed my life.
Wow.
I realized that I could have fun with this. and that I didn't have to be scared of it anymore. And my biggest regret in life, to be honest with you, is that I didn't have the social skills that I have now when I was young. But you can't go back, you know. So you just got to make the best of what you've got left. But yeah, I was if you would have been a fly on the wall watching me grow up, you would have never guessed I would have gotten into television.
Oh, wow. What would you tell people like you, the introvert, but want to be on stage or on TV? Do you advise them just go ahead and do it and just get over it? Or there are some tricks and tips that you will advise them to start small steps?
Well, the first thing I would tell them is that if I can do it, anybody can.
That's perfect answer right there. Because coming from Greg Fishel himself.
You know, but I would just say what I used to tell interns when we had interns, that don't worry about, you know, when you're in front of the green screen and the camera and so forth, don't worry about all these details like, am I looking at the camera the right way? Do I have my left arm in the right place? Am I, you know, whatever. Is that I would tell them, pretend that you just got off the school bus and your mother met you at the door and she said, you have 3 minutes to give me the summary of the highlights of your day.
Oh, wow.
And you wouldn't have any problem doing that because you were the star of that show. And so that to me always made it easier. If I thought about how many thousands of people were watching me on the other side of that camera, I would have gone berserk. But I just had a few camera people and a few anchors that were all good friends. And I just pretended like, hey, I'm really, really excited about, you know, my job, and I'm going to share with you the highlights of my day for the next 3 minutes. And that made it way easier for me than if I would have had to think about how many people were watching and what they were thinking and all that kind of stuff.
This is cool. That's similar to what I do. At the beginning when I started being in front of the camera, I was freaking out. I have the list of questions like, oh, what if the question's not going to go in the order? What if I don't look right? What am I, you know, for the girls, what's if the lipstick is not perfectly there? And like, there's so many different things. What if I stumble? It's like, but then I had to realize that people want you to succeed for the most part. They want to see your best self. And they want to see your personality. Yes. And that's what they're looking for. They want to see who you are. And it's okay if your makeup is not perfect. Well, heck, I had the eyelid surgery and I made some shirts about that. I had to get on the camera without makeup, and that's okay.
Yep.
So it's kind of interesting. And then one of the things that I also do, I pretend that my friends are watching. And that makes it so easier. So, wow, how you explain it to your interns and what I had to experience is very similar. I love it.
Oh, there was one time when I was doing a weather broadcast and I had put on a little bit of weight. And when I went to point to something, one of my buttons on my jacket popped off. And a lot of times, you know, what you're told to do is, well, don't call attention to things like that. And I just had fun with it. I said, oops, looks like I've gotten a little bit too fat. There went the button, you know. and it's like, it's so much less stressful when you have fun with it than if you try to cover it up, you know.
Yeah.
And I think you're exactly right. People are human. They want to see the human side of you just like they have their human side. And then I think you make the connection better that way.
Yeah. They want to be able to relate to you, say, oh, him too, her too, she gained weight. And I look at myself, there is a period since I started doing podcasting, I've gained weight. And I look at myself and say, oh, I gained weight. But people still loved it because it was still me. Right. You know, the things will change. You're not going to be always young and beautiful, although we might want to feel that's what we want. But as long as we evolving is and presenting who we are, our truth and our integrity and our personality,
Yep.
even we don't feel good. Like some days I don't feel good, but I say, hey, people want to hear from me. They want to see who I want to highlight. They want to hear my message. They want to hear what my guests have to say about the business and life and their stories and what they learn and how
Right.
they overcome. And we all have similar problems. We all have similar challenges. Is what we do about it, how
Right.
we overcome, and what we learn is what's important. Speaking about overcoming, how do you overcome when your identity is tied to your job for 30 plus years, in your case 35 years, because it's part of your identity? How do you just leave that behind and, so to speak, reinvent? I know you didn't completely reinvent yourself. You're still doing a lot of meteorology, but it's still not the same. Tell us about it. How did that shift? How did that happen for you?
It's funny. It hasn't been as tough of an adjustment as one might think it would have been. Like this morning, and one of the things I do sort of for fun is that I drive Uber to make some play money. Okay, like to save up for trips or something like that. And so this morning in Myrtle Beach, I picked somebody up, and as soon as she looked in the car, she said, "I know you." And she used to live in North Carolina and used to watch me when she lived up there. Even though I've been off the air 6 years now, she still remembered, Now, it doesn't happen as often as it did before, but it still periodically happens. And I'll tell you one thing, it's funny. Anybody that gets in my car, the first thing I ask them is where they're from. And if they say Raleigh or Durham or Fayetteville, I'll say, I have a very self-serving question to ask you. I said, I was a meteorologist on TV up there, and they'll say, Greg? And I'll say, yeah. And they say, oh my God.
Oh my God.
And that's always fun, to go through something like that. But anyways, maybe the fact that I still have my toes dipped in it just a little bit has made it easier than just going from having a public persona to having none of that, But I really like what I'm doing now because I haven't got any time limits. I don't have anybody telling me what the content has to be. It's pretty much a one-man show, and there's parts of that I like. I miss the people I work with. I don't miss the deadlines, but I miss some of the people that I work with.
With lots of freedom comes a lot of responsibility. How do you keep yourself grounded? Is there any routines? A lot of people do, walking, meditation. What's keeping you grounded?
Well, gosh, if I'm brutally honest with you, one of the things I'm working on right now, and I haven't gotten to where I need to be yet, is to provide some structure during part of my day. When you work second shift, like you go into work at 2 or 2:30 and get off at midnight, it's very easy to become, I hate to say a slob, but very unstructured in the morning because you don't have to be at work until 2 the next afternoon. And so I really don't know what it's like to have to get up at 6 in the morning and be on my way to work by 7 and then work 8 to 5 and have that kind of a schedule. So like I play the tuba in 2 different bands here, and I'm still trying to work out a routine in the morning where I have time to practice every day. And I, to be honest with you, haven't gotten to where I need to be yet on that. But it really does require self-discipline and committing to a schedule that, these are the things that are important to me to get done today, and here's when I'm going to do them and follow through on it. And I'm still working on that, to be honest with you.
Couple of very interesting things just came out of what you said. First of all, I want to say thank you for being vulnerable. Not a lot of people are able to admit what they're working on, especially when the cameras are rolling, and God knows how many people are going to hear it. Hopefully thousands you interview and more. But that illustrates people, whoever's listening, it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's important to realize that as long as you're aware that you want to work on something, you need to figure out what you want to work on. And Greg just said he's going to work on his organizational skills, how to get himself more motivated earlier in the day. I'm just as guilty of that as myself. I've never been a morning person, and I'm still working on it 10 years later. So see, it's when you're vulnerable, and tell me if you agree, if you're vulnerable, especially when you say you used to be a public figure. To me, you're still a public figure. Once you're a public figure more than 35 years, then to me, it's always the same. And I'll tell my story in a minute. Let me finish this. So,
okay.
When you're vulnerable, people can relate to you. It goes back to being relatable. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. The one thing I will say, though, is that there have been a couple of times in my life when I was too honest.
Same here.
And I always thought that there was no way that I could ever be too honest, but sometimes there are things that people want to hear about, and there are things that people don't want to hear about. And, so I've had to learn how to, what's the word? Perfect my filter a little bit.
I call it be a little sugar coating, a little bit of sugar coating.
Yeah, right. And the thing about
I had to adjust and adapt to that. I grew up in Ukraine. We're direct. We tell you how it is. And then when I moved to Texas, I had to learn how to slightly sugarcoat things. Guess what? When I moved to North Carolina, I had to figure out how to do a bit more. I had to kind of filter stuff and be a little bit more sugarcoating, because some people can't handle the truth. And I appreciate your being able to come on camera specifically on my show and feel comfortable to be vulnerable on Geni's Way podcast. I really appreciate that. Something else you said that was extremely important that triggered me. I had an interview earlier this week with Fletcher Ellingson, and one of the biggest things that we talked about, if you want to change anything, you have to be willing to commit to that change.
Yes. And I think, again, to be brutally honest, that's what's lacking for me right now is in terms of the morning routine, is making that absolute commitment that even on days when I don't feel like doing something at 9 o'clock, that I'm going to do it anyways, and that's a hard thing to do.
I can relate to that, Greg.
Huh?
I can relate to that.
The thing about it is, like, people said, well, gee, you had to meet all those deadlines in the television industry. I would think structure would come very easy to you. And I'm sitting going, yeah, but I knew that if I didn't meet those deadlines, I was going to get fired. So it's pretty easy to meet a deadline when so much is on the line, but it's when there isn't a lot on the line and you still make yourself do it. That, I think, is when you really accomplish something.
So that's the beauty and the fault of being entrepreneurs and running your own business. You have to stay ahead of yourself, so to speak, and discipline yourself. That's challenging. And how do you even go about it if you're not a morning person? So you figure out how to bring structure back. And that's difficult for a lot of people. I've talked with a lot of entrepreneurs. They came from 9 to 5, and they talk about similar things. It's difficult for them to have structure because there are so many things to do, and they end up doing things that do not move the needle.
Right.
And they do the busy work that doesn't make sales. That's one of the things I keep hearing over and over again. How do you make that priority? How do you teach people to prioritize? What are your thoughts on making priorities? Do you do a weekly priority, daily, monthly? Well, how do you handle that usually?
You mean like make a list or whatever? Or?
Yeah.
Well, every once in a while I'll make a daily list, but I probably need to do that, every day. And there was a point, there was something I was thinking of, and it just flew out of my mind here, but I think it's, I know what. There are some times when I get into this mode where I have to figure this out now. It cannot wait until tonight or tomorrow or the next day. It has to be figured out now. And the bottom line is, in a lot of cases, it doesn't have to be right now. Okay. So I'm creating this sense of urgency that isn't real. Okay. And I'm probably sacrificing something else that's more important by putting so much value on this thing that I'm involved in right now. So I would say that prioritizing things is still a challenge for me as well. Like, for instance, if I come up with a new idea for a graphic for my podcast, am I going to get the final product out an hour late today because I couldn't put it down? Or would it have served the public better if I had gotten my thing out on time and then worked on that afterwards? And I think, to be honest with you, some of it is selfishness. It's like, oh, I'm really into this right now, so this is what I want to do, and I'm going to keep doing it. And as opposed to thinking of the customer, like, why am I going to keep them waiting for something that is not really, in the overall scheme of things, all that important?
Sounds like a lot of their perfectionism there, maybe a little bit.
You think so?
I am not surprised. Hold on. Let's calculate how many forecasts you did over the course of your years. Too many to count, let's face it. Maybe you got 5 of them wrong. No more. Well, so the perfectionism could be awesome skill, or it could be something that kind of slowing you down.
Yes.
So is that being there in the middle ground, kind of like, okay, I'm going to do the best I can. And then you have to not see it from selfishness. Like, oh, I want to be 100% perfect or 100% right.
Right.
But why would you make the clients wait, or listeners, like, right?
Right.
Just because you want to be absolutely 100% perfect? Or is there 100% perfect?
Yeah, I don't think there is.
Okay.
I will tell you this, that I think a lot of what I have learned over the years about weather forecasting has come from the times that I was wrong. And I think this applies in life, that if something doesn't go the way that you either thought it would or wanted it to, if you care enough about that error to learn from it, then there's a good chance that won't happen again. But if you take this attitude like, oh, well, I'm human, I'm going to mess up, let's move on, then I feel like you're destined to make the same mistake over and over and over again. So it's like, when things go wrong, I view them as learning opportunities. And if I'm wrong now, but I get better because of that wrong, that's a good thing overall in the long run.
That's great wisdom. Like, don't be afraid of making mistakes, because that's where the biggest learning and the biggest development will come for you as a person and as a professional. However, as like you said, I see a lot of the time that people are afraid to make mistakes because they haven't learned from their mistakes.
Right.
And they keep happening over and over again. So I'm glad you brought it up. It's lots of wisdom here on Geni's Way from Greg Fishel. You guys need to listen to this interview a couple of times. So Greg, what is the biggest lesson you learned from being unpredictable weather meteorologist? If you can say those lessons that you learned when you were predicting the weather, how those experiences helped you to become entrepreneurs or business owners? Some people using that interchangeably nowadays.
Oh boy. I think, and I've told many people this, one of the things I'm most proud of is that I ignored most of what the television consultants told me to do, and it worked out just fine. And I'll give you two examples.
Wait, can you repeat that?
Well, I mean, television stations pay these consultants thousands of dollars to tell them how to do our job.
Wow.
And one of the two things they told me was that the public didn't want to be educated, that all they wanted to know was whether or not it was going to rain or not.
Wow.
And number two, never talk about what you're not sure of. And I got more positive feedback from people would actually come up to me and say, the reason we watch you is that you teach. And that meant more to me than just about anything in the world, because it showed to me that people were interested in learning more about the weather and why things did what they did. And then the other thing was, there were times when I looked straight into the camera and said, you know, folks, I honestly don't know how this is going to play out. Here are the two most reasonable options, but I don't honestly know which one's going to come true. And people told me they appreciated the honesty. Like, why should I pretend to know when I don't? But these were all contrary to what the consultants told me to do. And I just sort of listened respectfully, and then I went on ahead and did my own thing. And so now that I'm doing this on my own, I don't have any limitations. I mean, there literally is no one placing any restrictions on what I'm saying or doing. And I find that very liberating. You know, it's fun to have that freedom, and hopefully have an audience that that appreciates it.
It goes back to what we were talking about earlier: being yourself, being honest, and value your integrity and your honesty. And people like that. They can relate to you. They know they can count on you. And if Greg not sure about the weather, then the weather is unpredictable, people, that day.
Exactly. But it's, and one thing that I had a change of opinion about a major issue that relates to my field. I was a 30-year skeptic of man-made climate change, which surprises a lot of people when I tell them that. But I realized one day that I was allowing my political ideology at the time to dictate my opinion about a science issue, and I couldn't justify that anymore. And so once I started treating it as a science issue, then it became impossible for me to make the argument that we weren't having an effect on the climate. But I've always tried to be really honest with people. I don't, there's sometimes when people protest things in what I feel is a very irresponsible way, and I think that it gives good science a bad name. And I always try to be very honest with people about how I am not for that type of thing at all. And I always try to listen respectfully. If somebody disagrees with me, I want to listen respectfully to them, because number one, they'll know that I'm listening. And number two, even if they don't change my mind, they could give me a perspective on the issue that I didn't have before. And I think that's what's missing in our world today, is that we're so loyal to our opinions that we're not willing to listen. And listening to different opinions and perspectives can broaden your own perspectives and potentially even change your mind. And there's nothing wrong with that. That means you're growing as a person, you're maturing. Nothing bad about that.
Wow. That's incredible wisdom, people who listen. Coming from Greg Fishel right here, right now. Being open to a different perspective. doesn't necessarily you have to agree with another person, but it could open something that you never thought possible for you. You could potentially change the trajectory of your entire life.
Yes.
If you can see things from a different perspective. You don't have to agree, but respectively listen and say, oh, I haven't thought about that. That's great wisdom.
Yeah, and I'm very disillusioned right now, to be honest with you, about how divided our country is right now. And
yeah,
I hear about families breaking up because of politics, and but I just think it's so important that we maintain some sort of decorum and have respect for people that don't agree with us. And I think if you do, then there's a better chance you can find common ground and get something done. But you're not going to unite the country by insulting people that disagree with you.
Oh gosh, yes,
that's not going to work.
Yeah, so remarkably true. Oh my God. So Greg, not to change, going away from the politics, tell us what exciting you're working on. Tell us what exciting project is you working on. How can listeners supposed to help you, how they can help you support your mission and help Greg, our legendary Greg Fishel, to continue his entrepreneurial journey. How can we help you? What's exciting going on?
Well, the URL for my Patreon product is it's Patreon, which is patron with an E, patreon.com/fishweather, all one word.
Yeah.
And there's two tiers. There's a $3 a month tier, which is the basic subscription, and then if you're really a nerd and you really want to get into the science, then there's a $5 a month option. But I tried to price it so that it wasn't a budget buster, But the videos that I make are generally 6 to 8 minutes long every day, Monday through Friday. And if there's something going on over the weekend, then I'll do special updates for that. But the way you can help me the most is just to get the word out that I'm doing this. I have found that a lot of people in Central North Carolina, even though I've tried to advertise it, don't know that I'm doing it. And I feel like if they did, that would help.
Now they do. So is there anything else that I didn't ask you that you would like to bring up today?
Oh my. I would just say that like when it comes to severe weather, like hurricanes and tornadoes, I have a little different perspective on those two things. For instance, let's say that a tornado warning is issued for your area.
Okay.
The chance of that tornado going directly over your house is probably pretty small. However, if it does, and you've done nothing to prepare for it, you're in big trouble. And so what I always tell people is go to your basement or your closet or your bathroom, whatever your safe spot is, and if nothing happens over the next 20 minutes, don't be mad, be thankful.
All right.
It's only 20 minutes of your life. It's not a big deal. And the same thing with hurricane season is that I hear these forecasts of, it's going to be an active hurricane season and all this sort of stuff. Well, in 1992, Hurricane Andrew devastated South Florida, and that was a below normal hurricane season. There were only 6 named storms that year, but don't tell anybody in Homestead, Florida that. They'll get very mad at you, And so I just try to be real with people about, tornado warning is serious, but, have a plan ahead of time, go to your safe spot, and if the worst happens, you're prepared for it. If the worst doesn't happen, you've only lost 20 minutes of your life. As far as hurricane season goes, every year you should prepare the same. It doesn't matter who tells you that it's going to be active or not active or whatever. It only takes one. So prepare for that one. If it doesn't happen, be thankful. If it does, you've given yourself the best chance to get through it.
That's a great way to finish our amazing conversation. No matter what you do, life or business, be prepared. And be grateful when things are going smoothly. Just because they're going smoothly doesn't mean you need to stay ready and be prepared. Anything could happen, just like Greg mentioned.
Yep.
Lots of wisdom. I am really happy that I had the chance to talk with you.
Oh, this has been fun.
And thank you for coming Geni's way, where truth, wisdom, mindset, marketing, and much more happens, and where we have exciting time and talking with legendary people like Greg Fishel.
You're too kind. Thank you very much.
From weather maps to mapping our lives, Greg Fishel reminds us that success isn't just about accuracy, it's about integrity, curiosity, and courage. If you are in a season of change, questioning your next step, or learning how to lead without losing yourself, take this episode as the sign. The storms won't stop coming, but you can be better prepared to face them. If you're building a brand or rebuilding yourself, this one's for you. If this conversation resonated with you, make sure to subscribe, share it with someone navigating their own reinvention, and tag us with your biggest takeaway. And remember, sometimes the best forecasts come from within. Keep showing up, keep growing, and keep doing it Geni's way. Until next time, see you.